Welcome to Home Remodeler Toolbox, the podcast dedicated to empowering remodelers and builders to build and grow successful businesses. Join your host, Bob Vance, founder of Home Remodeler SEO, as he brings you industry insights and strategies that will help you build a thriving business, no matter what level you're at in your business. Whether you're a thriving multi-million-dollar business or you're working on building your business from the foundation up, this podcast is your go-to source for industry secrets and actionable strategies that you can implement in your business to get to that next level. So, turn on, tune in, and let's help you build your business foundation one building block at a time.
Today, we are joined by Monica Lewis, the president and partner at J.S. Brown & Co. Her impressive 23-year career trajectory at J.S. Brown began after she earned a degree in interior design from the Columbus College of Art and Design. Her ability to sketch layouts and identify potential structural impediments for frustrated clients led a contractor to offer her a job to sell and design remodeling projects, supporting her formal training, including with NKBA. After joining J.S. Brown, she progressed from being only design into design sales, eventually managing sales and taking on marketing, notably recognizing the need for the company to catch up with trends. In her leadership capacity, Monica draws on her creative background, applying the same problem-solving approach to internal company issues, identifying pain points, writing strategies, and managing implementation, as she did in design. She emphasizes adaptability and humility, and is deeply involved in the industry's future, promoting trades careers through the Women in Remodeling Initiative via the NARI of Central Ohio chapter. Currently, she is leading J.S. Brown in actively incorporating AI functionality into operations and documentation for efficiency, while also managing a major building addition plan for the company.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Home Remodeler Toolbox today. Monica, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you on today.
Thank you, Bob. I'm really excited to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to jump into some topics with you. Let's start with just kind of where you started your remodeling journey. Was there any defining moment that really took you into remodeling, and then what brought you into J.S. Brown and Company, and the remarkable career trajectory that you've experienced there? Kind of three questions in one there, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I think I can give you the background, try to give you the Cliff Notes version. My degree is in interior design. I graduated from the Columbus College of Art and Design here in town and left there feeling very passionate about the bigger, more substantial changes you can make in a space, and less excited about sort of the dressing of the space, if you will. That didn't interest me as much. And so it took a little while for me to kind of find my feet after getting that degree in interior design. And I worked in a couple of supply showrooms, worked in a lighting showroom, worked in a plumbing showroom. And so that was great to sort of get an underpinning of electrical systems and plumbing and HVAC systems. I worked also for a cabinet and appliance showroom. And so that gave me a nice broad base. But what I really loved was when I was working with clients in a showroom and they were making selections and they were frustrated because they really liked a particular thing, but they weren't sure it would fit or couldn't make it work with their floor plan. And for the builders that I had a good relationship with, and the remodeling contractors that I had a good relationship with, and I knew they wouldn't mind, I would say, well, let me just sketch something up here for you real quick and you can take it back to them and see if it's possible. I said, there might be mechanical or structural impediments here, but here's an idea for a layout that would let you get what you say you want in this space. And one of those contractors then offered me a job and said, well, clearly you're able to do this. And would you like to come and work for me and learn how to sell and design remodeling projects? And I did, and I learned a tremendous amount there. It was more of an entry-level type a remodeling company. So pretty conservative on pricing and the types of things that we did, but a fabulous learning ground for me. And he was very supportive of training. So if I needed more confidence in kitchens, which I did right off the bat, he said, "Let me send you to NKBA, and you'll learn some things there, or Teneri training." So that was great. And then eventually found my way to JS Brown and Company. And when I first got here, I was a little disillusioned with the sales process. I'd worked for a couple of different companies and felt a little disillusioned with that. Like maybe we weren't treated as fairly as we could have been in some of those situations, and thought that's what sales was, only to learn, well, that was the particular perspective of those companies, right? So once I got to JS Brown and I realized how we operated and how the ownership felt and how management felt about the team, I was like, oh, well, I'll sell here. Like, this is clearly a different environment. So I moved from being only design into design sales, I think really in that first year that I was here. And then worked in sales for quite a while, then went into managing sales. When social media started becoming a thing, I took on that, said, we really need to be on Facebook, this new thing, Facebook. Have you heard of it? We need to be on it.
Yeah.
And sort of took that over and sort of dabbled in marketing a bit since then. And then in 2019, we had a little bit of a leadership crisis, and Jeff Brown, the owner of the company, said, well, hey, would you be willing to step in as VP? And I said, uh, so in fact, why don't you make it acting VP, just to make sure I like it and you're happy with it. And once we were both comfortable that it was a good fit all around, I stayed in that role for a couple of years, and then moved into the president and partnership role in January of 24.
Wow. Wow. What a remarkable journey. Well, congratulations, just from going from the entry level, and now you're president and part of the ownership team. Great company, great reputation there in Columbus. So certainly something to be proud of for sure.
I really am. I found a home here, and
Yeah.
obviously 23 years later, it felt comfortable. Our values aligned, and this was something I love doing, and it was a company I was happy to do it for. And now we have a team, and I want to just sort of try to give that to them as well.
Right, right. How do you, being from that design background and having that real enthusiasm and passion for that, but now you're in this leadership role, you're leading a company. How do you balance the creative side of design with the leadership role and the responsibilities that you have to have as president of the company?
It was a big shift, honestly. And luckily, I came into it pretty much with eyes open. I don't know that you're ever really prepared to step into that role. I imagine it's like parenthood, where you just have to do it, right? But I was hesitant because of that. I love designing, and I love the creative aspect of this job, and I love helping the clients. I love seeing the transformation and seeing their happiness at the end of the job. And I was very concerned that I was going to miss out on that, and that I was going to be, pulled into leadership tasks that weren't as fulfilling. But I've honestly found it to be the opposite. I flex the same creative muscles within the company that I did trying to solve a problem for a client. You you're looking for the cause of the pain point. You're looking to come up with solutions on what might fix that. And then you're writing up a strategy to implement it. And then you're seeing it through. It's really the same as a remodeling job. We identify their pain point, we present designs, we figure out what's going to work best, we figure out how we would accomplish it, and then we do it. We manage it. So I get a lot of that same itch scratched
Uh-huh.
doing that process. But the thing I didn't suspect, and I should have, because I did teach for a brief period at my alma mater. I taught kitchen and bath design, got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I love training our team. I love mentoring them and working with our newer team members. Internally, I take a little bit of credit for everything they do. Like when one of my team
Yeah.
just does this beautiful design, I'm like, oh, look at that. look at that. And there's that thing I told him to try.
Yeah.
I know it's them. I know it's their effort and that their, determination to get it done. But still in my head, I take credit
Yeah.
a little bit.
You know that they're doing great work, you're proud of them, but inside you're kinda like a proud mama saying, "I taught you that. I helped, we got here together, but
We
this
help.
work's all yours and you get credit for it," but you can still take that internal credit like you said.
That's right. That's exactly
Yeah.
it. It's incredibly rewarding, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to feel so satisfied by what other people accomplish, but I really do, and I really want all of them to win. I want
Yeah.
them to get all the jobs and design all the things and really have happy clients so that they can feel what I feel, at the end
Right.
of jobs. Yeah.
I like how you described it too. It's all really the same process when you're looking at design and trying to build this beautiful project that makes sense functionally as well as aesthetically. You compare that whole process with leadership, and now instead of a project or a design or a drawing, it's people that you're trying to find those creative solutions for. But like you said, it's kind of the same either way, and it's still just as fulfilling. So I could see how being a leader is still sometimes it's a little stressful, and HR can be the bane of our existence at times. But it's also very gratifying because you get to see your people grow and blossom in their roles and their careers, and even personally as well as that professional aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get into the habit, especially I think with remodeling design, you get in the habit of just always having to learn new things. There's always a challenge, there's always a new product or a new client request or a new budget parameter, something, that you have to adapt to. And I feel like having that adaptability baked into me for so many years really serves me in this role now because I'm not afraid of saying I don't know how to do that and I'll figure it out. I've done it for 30 years. Like I'll
Yep.
figure it out and I'll
Yep.
get it done. So it's helpful to have a
Yeah.
design background, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any leadership qualities or lessons that you've learned over the years and through this career trajectory of yours that you wish you would have learned earlier that maybe might help some people think about avoiding those mistakes early on?
There's a few, and I honestly feel like I'm still absorbing them. It's been not quite 2 years, and I still feel like I'm internalizing and learning a lot of things, but a big one for me is something that should be obvious, but it's that not everybody approaches a problem the same way I do, and not everybody is gonna function through a process with the same methodology, and something that seems so clear and obvious to me when I present it to somebody else, may not register with them at all. They may not absorb it the way I delivered it. And it's not because there's something wrong with them. I need to adapt my message in a way that they can understand. And I also have to adapt my expectations. There's going to be skill sets that they have that are much better than mine. And there's going to be skill sets that I have that are more developed than theirs. And we have to figure out a way to meet in the middle, make both of us happy. And it it should have been obvious to me, but it wasn't. Of
Right.
course everybody's different, right? But, well, that means they learn differently, Monica, and that means they absorb differently, and that means they prioritize different.
Hmm.
So, anything that you feel is obvious may not be so to them. So that really helped my communication, which I think is a linchpin for everything, is to constantly remind myself that these are people with different skills and different aptitudes than mine. And, we just have to find a common ground to
Yeah.
meet on.
Everyone sees life and work through a different lens, and it's easy for us to say, oh well, this is just so easy, why aren't you getting this? And we have to step back as leaders and as mentors and educators and say, well, what angle are you looking at it from? Is it different from mine? Maybe it will open something up in you to say, oh wow, I never looked at it from that point of view either.
Yeah,
um,
or even change the process. I'm trying to drill this thing into the team. Well, I really ought to be listening because if it's not working, maybe it's my process that's wrong. Maybe it's not their ability to um, achieve it. Maybe what I'm asking isn't appropriate. Maybe it should work differently. And again, that's where the adaptability comes in, and a willingness to be humble and say, well, I can't possibly be the best at everything. So tell me why this isn't working. Tell me why you're not doing this the way we talked about. And then try to figure out a way we can adapt.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think that leads into company culture a lot too. So, a topic that we've spoken on previously, and teamwork and collaboration and everything that kind of goes into company culture. Are there aspects to your guys' company culture that you think really lend more of a better experience to the remodeling projects that you're working on, the customers that you work with?
I feel like there are. I feel very strongly, and I've always questioned the necessity for there to be an adversarial relationship between sales and design side, what I call office side of the construction industry, and the field side. I've worked in companies where that relationship was very contentious and there was a lot of finger pointing. If there was a mistake, it was production saying, well, the designer didn't design it right, or the salesperson didn't sell it right, or it was them saying, well, those production people just didn't read the specs, or they didn't look at the plans, or whatever. There's a lot of blaming going on. And at the end of the day, the client doesn't care whose fault it is.
Right.
The client cares that it gets reworked and corrected and done properly. And the ownership of the company cares that we figure out what went wrong and we keep it from happening again. It's not about placing blame. It's about, let's fix this. So I am very vocal about my expectation that when there's a problem, it's not so and so messed up. It's, we had a communication issue. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. This is not your responsibility. It's ours. We're going to mend it. It's going to be taken care of by this date. And thank you for your patience while we work through this, because there's too many times where a person on the production team has saved my bacon, right? I did make a mistake on the drawings, or I did forget to put something in the estimate that I told the client was going to be in there. And they've helped me figure out a way to make it happen. And there's been times where they messed up. They misread the drawing. They missed something in the specs and they didn't do it. And then we had to go back in and fix it. And I'm not going to throw them under the bus. They don't throw me under the bus. So that teamwork mentality
Hmm.
is hard because we don't see each other as much. We don't mesh as much, uh, you know, between the teams. The sales and design teams are together all the time and we help each other and collaborate. And the production teams do the same thing out in the field, but we don't get to mix all that often. We have to make a purposeful intent to do that. And so it's important to me that because we don't get to see each other as much, that we are very respectful of each other's talents and the fact that it takes both of us to bring this ship into port, and we better be working together or it's not going to happen. And that's going to give the client the best experience, right? And
Right.
it's going to help us come up with the best solutions. It's going to help the sales and design team learn, and it's going to make the process smoother for the production team so that they don't have so much stress out in the field.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone working together, like you said, everyone bringing that ship into port together, instead of being individuals or that blame game. Like we do the same thing in our company where it's like, this happened. I don't care, you know, who or why really, but let's, well, the why, of course, let's fix
Yeah.
that. But let's just fix the problem. Well, let's address the problem. What do we need to do? And internally, what do we need to do in terms of clients? And you just move forward and learn from it. There's no sense in the blame game, pointing fingers doesn't help. It's not constructive. Everyone's on a different path, a different plane in terms of their knowledge and or lack of knowledge of the like you said, from sales to design. Not there's not a lot of every bit of knowledge doesn't cross that barrier, and so you've got to kind of figure out how to come together and help work together as a team. And I think that's one of the beauties of company culture and developing that is really that spark, that creative spark that leads to more and more collaboration. it really helps you grow, helps your team bring them closer together. And that's always fun to see as well. When you're probably standing back and you're seeing your salespeople or designers like going back and forth, and you're just sitting there watching,
Yeah.
like the mother hen, you're probably like, this is great. I love this. This is this is why we're here. This is why we do this.
Yeah, and I love seeing, because we're on Builder Trend, so it's a project management platform where all the communication happens. And while I can't say that I read word for word every email or message that crosses over me, I do glance at them, right? And I do have a finger on the pulse of where the jobs are going. And the attaboys and the attagirls that I see going back and forth of, oh my gosh, thank you for finding that mistake before it got worse. Or, hey, I was just on the job site and the homeowners were raving about the team. They get a brownie point. It's an internal reward system we have. Give them a brownie point. The clients could not be happier with the guys in the field on this job. And I love seeing that. I mean, nothing makes me smile bigger than seeing them appreciate each other
Yeah.
because the clients are happy, right? All of that is just a big old love fest, and there's nothing better than those feelings,
Yeah. It's
like
all
a
get to,
thing.
yep. So get together and hug it out.
You
um, obviously remodeling has always been kind of known as a male dominated profession. It is what it is. And that's changing, thankfully. And we're seeing more and more women in the construction industry in leadership roles, even like yourself. What are some of the challenges that you've faced as a woman in remodeling as well as in leadership? And how have you overcome some of those challenges?
I feel fairly lucky that I never experienced any of the really awful things that some of my female colleagues have. We talk and, and we know, you know, bosses and managers and people around town that get whispered about and talked about. And I've been next to it and didn't even know it was happening, So I am cognizant of the fact that it's out there and feel very privileged that my stuff was much easier, much simpler to deal with. And I think I suffered it more when I was younger. And I'm not sure that maybe young men wouldn't have felt the same thing, but sort of an assumed lack of knowledge on behalf of the other person. And one of my favorite stories I love to tell was when I worked at a plumbing showroom. I'd worked there for a few years by this point, and the showroom was quiet on a Saturday morning, but the counter was busy. It was weird, right? So I ran over to the counter to help. And the counter is where all the plumbers come in, right? And just pick up their stuff. And I was in there, and this plumber comes in his overalls, and he comes in, he's like, this faucet's defective. He's like, it's the Delta with the handles, and we swapped out the acrylic knobs for the lever handles, and the handles don't work. And I said, oh, not defective. This is designed where you can turn off the water, pull the hot cartridge, turn it 180 degrees, put it back in, and then the handles will turn the right way. They'll go instead of the same direction, they'll go both towards it. And he just cocks his head and he looks at me. He says, honey, is there a man I can talk to? I said, there sure is. And so I went and got my coworker. He came over, listened to the guy's story, told him the exact same thing I said. Mm-hmm. And to this guy's credit, he said, well, that's the same thing she told me. And my coworker said, well, I'm not surprised. She trained me. And it was just like a validation moment, right? And so there are those moments where somebody assumes you don't know anything because you're a woman. And I'm sensitive to the fact that I've never swung a hammer professionally. And I'm very willing to say there are things I don't know. But the things I do know, I'm confident in those. And I think luckily time has given me the opportunity to prove myself. And I get less of it than I used to. And I tell my young women coming in, learn as much as you can, as fast as you can. Admit when you don't know something. You just haven't had that experience yet, and that's okay. But do understand that sometimes them assuming you don't know anything works to your advantage. and you're that much more impressive when you do know the answer, so it can work for you. And I feel like on the sales and design side, there are more women. And so you can, feel a little solidarity there. I'm still looking for the day where we see a lot more female faces applying for our field jobs, and um, to be out there working in homes, instead of here in the office. And that's
Right.
been slower coming. And honestly, that's where the higher demand is.
Hmm.
We're desperate for those folks.
How do you think companies can go about attracting female talent in those roles and educating them, retaining them, elevating them in that position and where they don't really maybe think they belong? What do you think some strategies that companies could employ there?
Well, I think if you're a company where the women who work there feel comfortable, right, and that they're willing to recommend, to their connections, hey, this is a good place to work. You'll be safe here. This is a good place, and that takes time, right? You have to work there a little bit. You have to feel like your manager's heart to a degree, and that they're going to be welcoming to that. I think our industry can help. Companies can band together and have, career fairs, or you could go to, schools, whether it's high school or intermediate college or college, universities or things like that, and say, hey, we're looking for people, you know, men and women. We need you both in the field, and maybe just highlighting a little bit. Hey, these are women in the field that are happy to be in the field, and they make a good living. They're makers at heart, and they get to make things all day. And this is a career path that you might not have considered, but it's viable. And just shining a light on that a little more often and saying, hey, there are women out here and we could use more, I think would go a long way.
Right. Just getting the word out,
Mhm.
you know. I know that you're also involved in women in remodeling as part of the NARI chapter. NARI, obviously, a great voice for the industry, great association to be a part of. Tell me a little bit about NARI and the women in remodeling role that you hold there in mentoring and trying to help facilitate more women coming into the construction and remodeling industry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, NARI's near and dear to my heart. I've gotten a lot of training from NARI over the years. Our company holds an accreditation from NARI, and we've got lots of certified team members on staff. And that opportunity to network, right, and learn from other people is important. And we, at the local level, our local chapter, which is in the area of Central Ohio, I had gotten together with a female business owner who owns a painting company. And she and I had started, we wanted to get something going, to support each other. We were calling it Women in Construction. And we got sponsorship and we got some events lined up, and we were scheduled to have our first event, and it happened 2 weeks after the governor shut the state down for COVID. So it
Oh,
never occurred. And then with the busyness of COVID and everything, it languished for a few years. And then our president at the time of our local chapter, Lynn Inskeep, she said, hey, would you consider revamping that Women in Construction and calling it Women in Remodeling and bring it into the chapter? And so that's what we did. And the basic idea being, hey, there's a lot of us out here, and there's a lot of men who would love to see more women come into the industry because they're looking for good help too. And let's promote this. Let's say, hey, this is a career for women to have, and just sort of solve a lot of problems at once. So we try to schedule a few events a year, either in tandem with chapter meetings that are already happening or on our own. And it's really just a chance to get to know each other, to network, to encourage women who might be in other fields to consider remodeling as a career choice. And like I said earlier, just get the word out.
Right, right. How is there a way to get more girls interested in their formative, high school years? We're trying to really build on the energy of trade schools and getting more kids to think about that career path and avoid all the college debt and maybe coming out not having a job, where you can come out with a license in a trade and make six figures and be on a path to maybe owning your own business someday. How do we get girls more interested in that in high school when they're maybe thinking about more of the traditional female roles at that young age?
Yeah, I think it's systemic, honestly. And I think as an industry, if we want that attention to be paid, if we want to be considered a viable career path for boys and girls, I think a lot of parents, a lot of high school guidance counselors say, oh, well, college is where you need to be. And even if the students say, well, that's really not my path for whatever reason, I don't enjoy academics, or I have another career in mind, or whatever, they don't necessarily direct them to the trades, right?
Right.
And I think getting the attention of those folks and saying, "Do you understand how much a good plumber makes? Do you understand
Right.
how much an in-demand electrician can command as far as a salary? And how desperately employers are like, I'll pay for your training. Just please come work here." I think if we can get those folks convinced, that's a good way to hopefully influence some of those. If their eyes are open, they can open the eyes of the young people they're working with. And there's a group called Build My Future that our local NARI and local BIA are involved with, which does just that, brings high schoolers out for a day. Look at the trades. Look at what you get to do if you are an electrician, a framer, a trim carpenter, an excavator. I mean, who doesn't want to get into one of those, backhoes and like try it out, right? Like,
For sure.
there's a lot of fun stuff going on in our industry, and to get those young people out there while their minds are still open to what their future might be, I think is a great way for us to start to insert some of those ideas that they can maybe then blossom.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Maybe even internships of some sort. I know, like generally, it's you're an apprentice, but that's when you're in formal training. But just like the internships you do in college, it really gives you an idea. Did you really want to go into banking or finance or that aspect of it? And then you kind of think, ooh, no, that wasn't very fun at all. But I think internships where you can get kids out, maybe over the summer, like some kind of a summer program, come out and swing a hammer for a summer and teach them all you can and see what they like and don't like. It just, like you said, just there's so many layers to this, so many people that are involved, from parents to high school guidance counselors or lack of guidance counselors, like in my high school when I grew up.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it, but I think if we can keep chipping away at it, because there's I've read an article recently, there's a demand of over 500,000 people needed in the construction industry. I mean and it probably is a low estimate, frankly, but that's a whopping number of people, of a shortage in our industry. I've talked to a lot of remodelers that they're like, I can't even do any marketing because I can't even keep up with what I have now because I can't find enough good people. We
Right.
can't grow as a company. We just can't find the staffing, and it's painful to hear that. It really is. When your whole industry is held back simply because you don't have the supply of manpower.
Especially when you look at what a huge percentage of our revenue as a company or as a country, how much money is earned because of construction,
Yeah.
right? Those numbers are massive. And when you say you are hamstringing one of the primary economic drivers of our country,
Right.
when you loop in, infrastructure construction, commercial construction, residential construction, and you're going to say, we're just not going to support this, you know, here's money for colleges. Where's the money for trade schools? Where's the encouragement, right? Um, that value, I don't think I don't think people are gonna realize what they've lost until it's gone,
Hmm.
and it's dwindling already. And those 500,000 in shortage, we're not just talking warm bodies. We're talking people who are skilled.
Skilled, yeah.
Not only do you need to recruit them, there's that learning curve of training them up. And we've got people retiring that have been doing this for decades, and their parents did it for decades. They have generational knowledge that's getting lost,
Right.
not being replaced.
Yep.
So, yeah, when people decry and they say, "Oh, this is terrible. Everything is just modular and everything is there's no craft, there's no this." It's like, "Well, if there's nobody to do it, what other choices do we have?"
Right. Right.
You know?
Yep.
It's gonna be what the employment market provides to
Right.
us.
Yep. One of the things that you're really passionate about, I know, is continuing education. Not only educating to get the people into this profession, but once you're in it, to
Mhm.
continually keep your skills up. You're a student of life. I know you're always learning, always reading. Getting more accreditations for yourself, for people, as well as for your company. How do you see that continuing education component continually, I guess, reshaping the remodeling industry?
I obviously I've been in this industry, just for my whole adult career. So I don't have insight into what others do, but I have to believe that we are right up there with medical professionals and technology professionals in terms of the amount of new information that we not only have to absorb, but practice. We have to turn around and practice it immediately. And we have to, with remodeling, we have to incorporate it with all of the best practices and technologies that have been going on for a couple hundred years, right?
Right.
So not only do I have to learn, oh, this is the best new way to flash a window, I have to figure out, okay, I've got this best new way to flash a window, but now I'm putting it into a house that was built in 1910. How does it work now? Right. So
Right.
that continuing evolution of our industry in terms of product and technology has to be absorbed. So you have to keep learning. You have to stay viable through learning. That it's just the only way you're going to survive. And it's also the best way to kind of keep it fresh and exciting. If
Absolutely.
there's always a new thing to learn and be inspired by, how are you ever going to get bored? I've never once been bored in this industry, and I always say if you're bored in your job, you've been there too long. You need to find because there's something else out here that's going to be interesting to you.
It's going to stimulate you, drive some passion. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the certifications, I collect them like, you know, what is what are the new things, the boo-boos. If there's a new training thing out, I'm like, "Hey, I wanna be a part of that." And, I actually helped the national committee that created the Certified Remodeling Designer certification, which is new for NARI because everything tended to focus on the field and ownership. Um, and there wasn't a lot in for designers and how they work in the sales construction process, right? So, I think that education is gonna be amazing for
Yeah.
people, and, especially now, I mean, AI, we all gotta relearn how we do things, right? So, if you're not willing to do that, this may not be the right industry for you.
Yeah, that's what I always tell my people, like, digital marketing, it changes every day. AI is shaking it up. I said, if you wanna go to an automotive plant and put the tire on every time a car, passes by on the assembly line, put the next tire on, or the steering wheel, or whatever your role is, like, then this job is not for you. Like, we are talking about learning and continuing education and AI, like, every day practically. So you've got to keep up. And I think that's the same for the remodeling, industry, and especially how AI is going to affect remodeling and design and building and construction. It's going to have a massive impact. Are you guys starting to incorporate AI into your company a lot right now?
Um, I would say I am starting to incorporate it a lot. And we have the ancillary is not the right word, but we have slivers of it, coming in. Our Builder Trend platform has some AI functionality now that helps us do client updates every week. It goes and it looks through the project and it says, "Oh, well, this is what was new in the past week. Do you want to serve this up to your client?"
Wow.
I can summarize a whole week's work in less than 30 seconds with this new software plugin that they added to our platform. And our drafting software chief architect is getting smarter and smarter. We use Canvas now to digitally scan and create our chief plan for us, which saves us a tremendous amount of time. And hopefully this is going to help with some of that employment shortage. Um, I use it a tremendous amount for rewriting SOPs, updating job descriptions. Right now, I'm working on our regular meetings, the agendas, and the checklists. I'm in the middle of a project with ChatGPT right now where I'm like, okay, these are old. They need updated. I've been meaning to do it for a while. So here's what I got. Here's what I want to change. Show me what you got, and then I can tweak it. And it just happens much faster than having to type it all in myself and write it by hand. And I still feel like I can control my voice because I've been working on it for a while. So it
Yeah.
knows our communication style and what we want to see. Yeah, I use it pretty much every day on something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you inspire others too, because I know a lot of guys, a lot of remodelers, they're still old school, spelled with a K, and they're just not ready to really kind of come into the 21st century and adapt to this whole AI thing. I tell them, like, you got to get with the program, buddy. You're going to get left behind. And, that this is where the world is going, like AI for everything, especially in our industry. It is going to change. And hopefully, like you said, it does impact, some of those personnel shortages. And you go, oh, well, AI can do it. But, the more people can learn, just like let it write you letters or emails or, like you said, let it redesign your SOP documents. Like we're doing that as well. Just running all thousands of through, and it's amazing. Like you run this whole document through, or you upload a whole webinar or an interview and say, give me a summary. And it literally does it in about 3 seconds. So
Yeah.
the time savings and efficiency, it's almost like you can't ignore it. You have to just adopt it just for the sake of efficiency, much less everything else that it can, start doing for you.
Yeah. And I understand the trepidation initially. Because certainly when I first started dabbling in it a few years ago, I was like, it's a little freaky. And
Yeah.
I also initially I didn't quite get how to make it work for me and how to explain to it what I wanted, right? It's kind of like when you're working with an apprentice in the field. If you say hang that door, you don't know what you're coming back to. But
Right.
if take an hour and you show them, this is how I want the hinges mortised, this is how I want them leveled up, this is how I want them trued to the frame. Do you see what I'm doing here? Okay, now you go work on the next couple by yourself, and I'm going to come back and check them and give you feedback. That's how you work with AI. You show it what you want, you have it respond to you, and you say, no, that's not quite right. Here's what this should be. And it starts to learn, just like your apprentice starts to learn in the field. And probably the most significant thing I heard in the training was if AI scares you and if you think, oh, this could be bad, right? You're the person who needs to use it because the people who are using AI are the ones who are going to put the curbs on it. It's the users, it's the people who show up who are going to say, this is what's appropriate for AI and this is what AI should stay out of,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're
Yeah.
not using it, you don't have any um
Context, really.
context. Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't have the wherewithal to sort of influence where the future of the thing goes. And so if you want to be part of the conversation and you want to be an influence as to how it's being used and whether that's appropriate or not, then you got to be at the table, right?
Yeah.
Making
Yeah.
your voice heard. So
Yeah, absolutely. What about for in terms of advice for all those other remodelers out there that just say that they're just too busy to learn AI, to jump into all this continuing education, because all of us, we get busy with all the day to day, and your day starts out great, and before lunch it's all mucked up already, and you're just like, God, how did this train go off the rails so badly? Where do
yeah,
I fit this continuing education in? We've been talking about it with our team, like, don't wait till Friday and kid yourself and think you're going to just stop and start reading stuff on a Friday afternoon. Like, get your continuing education in at the beginning of the week, because we encourage it every week. What would you say to those that are out there that just don't feel like they have time to do this continuing education, or to learn about AI? How would you kind of maybe shake them and whip them into shape?
I'm gonna use an example. When I was a young cabinet designer, and I would get these huge cabinet orders, the confirmation. I'd write up the order, I'd send it to the manufacturer, they'd send it back to me, and this is your confirmation. Check it over. You've got 24 hours to make any corrections and send it back to me. One of my orders had a mistake on it. I'd sent it incorrectly, but the manufacturer made a mistake. And I didn't catch it. And the order came in and the cabinet was wrong. And this young designer was like talking to the rep and saying, "Can you help me out with this? Can you get me a new cabinet? See, here's my order. It was right on my order. And, you guys got it wrong." And he's like, "Why didn't you check the confirmation?" I said, "I'm busy. Do you know how many jobs I have going on? I don't have time to sit down and spend half an hour going over a document that I already sent to you once."
Right.
And he said, "Monica, if you don't have time to check the confirmation, how in the world are you going to have time to deal with the problem that it causes later? If you don't have time to get better and faster at your job, how are you going to function later?" Right?
Right.
You owe that to yourself. You owe it to your team. They're counting on you to provide them a workplace, right? They're counting on you for their livelihood. And you're telling me you don't have time to get better at a new skill that is radically influencing your industry
Right.
and get up to speed on it. That's like saying I don't have time to learn CAD. I'm too busy doing my drawings by hand. I don't have time to learn to do CAD. Even though it's going to make you 10 times faster.
Yeah.
You got to stop and figure it out.
Yep. Yep. You can't put your head in the sand, especially as technology keeps advancing. And right now, I mean, I read a lot of on AI, and I follow Elon Musk, who is really leading the charge. And then you listen to these guys from the chip companies and AI companies, and they're talking about the acceleration is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. So if you think learning and keeping up till now has been tough, wait till you see what's coming the next 10, 20 years. Like you said, you've got to set time aside to learn. You have to learn this for the sake of efficiency, if anything, as well as just to get smarter and more knowledgeable, and be able to stand out from other companies out there that just have not, gotten on the bus.
Yeah, I heard somebody say recently that, and granted, right now it's still very iffy. I was playing around with Grok the other day just to see what it could do. Here's a space. We want to do this kitchen with this style, and we want to include this. And I mean, the mistakes were rampant, right? It can give a feel, right? Which sometimes that's all you need for the client to just say, "Okay, do you like this feel?" And then I'll make something that works, right?
Right.
So for a communication piece, it's already good enough. But eventually, it is going to get good enough, right? And it is going to have an accurate drawing. And so at that point, the speaker was being asked, "Well, isn't this going to steal jobs from designers?" And what the presenter said was, "Well, did computer assisted drafting steal jobs from draftspeople? No,
No.
but people who could use CAD stole jobs from people who couldn't."
Right.
And designers who know how to use AI to generate or iterate designs that they've already come up with, and I just need you to refine this and I need you to add that. salespeople who know how to use AI to iterate and to help them do their jobs better. Um, those are going to be the people who are more competitive in the marketplace. And
Absolutely.
may not
Yeah.
be AI stealing your job, but it's going to be the person who knows how to use AI that's stealing your job because
Yeah.
they're how to be more productive.
Yep. I have a friend that's a graphic artist and has not been able to find a job in forever. And I asked, like, have you learned, computer aided design? Are you learning the technology platforms? No, was the answer. I'm like, maybe there's a correlation now on why you can't find a job because you're still working the way you worked come out of college, and the world has left that far behind. You need to get with the program. You need to learn the new technology and these new skills. And I think it's exactly what you're saying. That cannot be emphasized any more than what you have. Like, you have to learn these skills or you will be left behind,
And
especially in design.
yeah, and being able to leverage because there's a homogeneousness to the designs that come from AI. It's kind of like how you've noticed that like AI created people all kind of look the same.
Hmm.
AI averages all the people faces it has into a face, right? So they are all going to kind of look the same. And it's the same with interior design. You tell it modern design and it's going to just create this very bland modern design thing. There's room for people still because that creative spark that's going to come from, well, yeah, take that but give me this twist on it. Take that but move it over here. Take this but make it and using it like a tool. I'm not encouraging people to get lazy in their own brains. I prefer to write and then have ChatGPT improve or take 2 or 3 things that I've written, say, this is how I speak, this is how I write. Now I need to write up this thing and give them the notes and then say, put it in my voice. Um, then I can still make all the changes I want. I don't just let it go,
Right.
right? Still
Right.
read it. I still say, I would never say that,
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
make it my own.
Yep.
Still flex your humanity into this.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what your clients are coming to you for. But use the tools you have.
Yeah.
Use a power sander instead of a sanding block. My God, man. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think most people are still stuck using it to write some blogs, and then they're still not even manipulating or massaging those blogs into their own voice and their own experiences. It's just letting it spit it out, and they're just another one of those, 10 billion pages that have been de-indexed by Google because Google says this is just all, garbage that doesn't really have a human voice behind it, human experience behind it. So I think everyone's at different, stages in their journey, especially with AI. But hopefully, some of your insights will get people thinking about how they can use it more in their company, like you guys there are at JS and Brown and JS Brown and Company.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so. I hope so. It's going to be a great tool for them.
Yeah. For your company, JS Brown and Company there in Columbus, Ohio, what's on tap for you guys? What's the future have lined up that you kind of are thinking about, or some initiatives you guys are working on?
Well, one of our big projects, and honestly, we've been working on it for a while now. It's classic case of the cobbler's kids not having any shoes. We've been planning an addition on our own building for years, literally years. But I do feel like we're starting to turn the corner. We've got our city approvals and our zoning and all of that done, and now we're down to the stuff where we can really get in the weeds. All of the interior things and everything. And I'm excited to get it going. I want it not only started and done and being used, but like really finessed by the time we have our 50th anniversary, which happens in 2028. So we are looking forward to that big milestone and have some growth goals that we've got planned for then and by then, and we're looking forward to seeing what the next half century brings us.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. Well, best of luck to you and JS Brown and Company going forward. I know you guys are making an impact already there in Central Ohio, and I'm sure you will continue to do so.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're really
Yeah. Oh, Monica, any parting advice for any of our listeners? Anything that you might want to say about the industry leadership, just anything that you can pass along that might be a light bulb moment for someone that isn't as far along in their journey as you are?
I feel like you're never too small to get your ducks in a row. As far as getting those SOPs written, getting the stuff that you've got in your head out into the computer, onto the server, on paper, however you like to work, because the bigger you get, the harder it is to go back and rebuild it. And I think that that whole methodology that we went through when we were getting our NARI accreditation of, hey man, you need to have everything documented. How do you run payroll? How do you do marketing? What are all the passwords for everything and all your accounts? And how do you do this and how do you do that? If any one of our management team gets hit by a bus, we've got their SOPs on file. Like we know what they do and could limp along until they got better and came back to us. It's never too early to do that. To get your SOPs in order and get your company structure written out
Yeah.
and out there. And you can always change it. Better done than perfect.
Yep. Yep.
And it will be a living document, and you'll always be changing it. But don't wait. Just start now and do it. It was the best thing we ever did to just get our arms wrapped around every department in the company and know that we know how things are supposed to run.
Yeah. Build little by little, like you said, better done than perfect. Keep evolving it, keep perfecting it, but don't treat it like that, that finished basement that you got to tear out after you've, built it up and decide that I need to tear all this out and start over, because we know how hard that is.
Yeah,
Start with that new basement finish, and it's much easier to build from scratch, as you go, than to go back, like you said, tear everything out and redo it. So I
yeah,
think that's some great advice, and hopefully people take that to heart, because it will catch up to you,
yeah. Well,
especially
sure
all
will.
those SOPs and systems. And like you said, someone leaves and you go, oh my God, like we don't know how to do what they did, and they never documented it. I had that happen. We had to let go of someone recently, and he didn't document a lot of things I had just taught him. And I thought, gosh, it's my fault. Extreme Ownership, one of the best books out there, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willenick. But you have to take responsibility for everything. And that's something I said, okay, I'm not letting that happen again. So that is some
Yeah,
great advice. Thanks for sharing
yeah.
that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Monica, thank you so much for coming on the Home Remodeler Toolbox podcast today. You have been a wealth of knowledge. Your smile is infectious, so not everyone's going to see that on a podcast unless they're watching the video. But thank you so much for bringing your insights, your experience, your wisdom to the show. I'm really, really glad to have you on. Really fortunate to be able to hear from leaders like you in the industry.
I was happy to do it, and I was very flattered to be invited. And just one more quick thing, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
OH.
IO. Thank you for that. 8 days. We are ticking down to
We are.
Buckeyes football starting. So believe me, I've been counting them down every day. So looking forward to being back into Columbus next weekend, and hopefully we might be able to cross paths.
Enjoy your trip. Travel safely.
Okay. Thank you, Monica, again for being on the show. And thank you to all of our listeners out there for the Home Remodeler Toolbox podcast. Thanks for turning on and tuning in. I'm glad to have you on the show, and hopefully you got a lot of value from Monica. We'll look forward to having you on our next show. And until then, take care, everyone, and have a great weekend.